And I would say from the Knoxville side, we've got a lot of exciting things going on here. And it's really cool because you've got the beer snobs, Robin Donner, big supporters, you've got the Knox Beer Crew, you've got Casual Pint, got a new location coming up here soon, and thanks Ethan for all your support. Chris has been a pioneer here for the beer market, wherever Chris is, for a long time. And also Chris from the Brewers Jam in the back as well. So we certainly appreciate all the great support we've got going on here. So very exciting. While I'm going through this, I want to thank our sponsors. They kind of made this happen. Not kind of, they did make this happen. So first of all, a quick round of applause for the brewers behind me. Really appreciate those guys. We also have Nama Sushi, which has got a great spread for you guys tonight. You guys will certainly enjoy it. And they've got 2 locations, but again, Nama's is a great supporter. We also have the Pizza Kitchen. Again, a great supporter, does a great job with the craft beers, has a huge amount of handles. So if you haven't been to either one of those restaurants, or it's been a while, make sure you go out and check them out because, again, they're taking their time tonight to make this event happen. And of course, lastly, but certainly not least, is going to be Michael from ANCO Cheese. I'm not sure where Michael is, but there he is. And probably one of the foremost experts in cheese in the world. And so you guys are going to be wow tonight. We had an event last night, a sampling, with Adam and Dave at Sawworks. And I tell you guys, we did a sampling, make sure you guys got the right recipe. Boy, we were just amazed. And I think you guys will be amazed at how it all interacts. So that's all that. I'm going to do a round of introductions here at the table. And I'll ask each brewer if you can give your name, a little bit about your brewery, your favorite beer, and something unique about yourself. And also we have Danielle as well from the ABC, which is the foremost expert in high gravity laws. So certainly if you have any questions or anything that you want to fire away, certainly do that.
Hi, I'm Eric Allen with Studio Brew. We're a new little brewery out of Kingsport, Tennessee. Started out as a home brewer just a couple of years ago and started having a lot of fun, and next thing you know, we're taking the big step. So my favorite beer is the one in my glass, but I don't have one. So started doing some Belgians, and that went a little crazy, and now we're into the land of porters, stouts, IPAs, anything that I can get my hands on to start creating. And of course, can't leave anything.
And I would say that each table's got around 10 people. You see the tables that are lighter, make sure you get some food from there as well, because it's portioned out for 10. So here's some of the great home brewers. These are kind of Tennessee's next great home brewers in general.
Hey y'all, my name is Ratchet. No, my mom did not name me that. My name is Jason, but everybody knows me as Ratchet. I unfortunately only brought a 6th barrel, which is 5 gallons of homebrew, and it looks like it did missed a couple tables up front. So feel free to walk up and find the darker looking beer somewhere, and I'm sure they'll share it with you. I guess Aaron asked me to talk about my beer and talk about being a home brewer. Most of the home brewers I know want to be where these guys are eventually. I hope to be there in 10 years or so. Someone handed me the keys to a 30-barrel system right now, I'd be like, I don't know, Dave, what do I do? But right now I'm home brewing at 10 gallons. And what's great about being a home brewer is you get to experiment. These guys, they can do some experimentation, but ultimately they've got to make beer that's going to sell. If I make a batch of beer and it's not great, I dump it and try to pretend it doesn't exist. It costs me maybe 30, 40 bucks. These guys make a batch of beer that they don't like and they dump it. It's costing them considerably more. So I wanted to make something, I like to brew seasonal. I like to brew with what's available. And this year we had a killer mulberry harvest. I always harvest mulberries. I usually make mead out of it. This year I'm like, what kind of beer could I put it in? Usually I do a wheat-based beer and put my mulberries in it. This year I was like, well, I want to make like a strong American stout and see if I can balance out the mulberry flavor with some dark and chocolate malts. And I did it on nitrogen, which were beer gas mix, poured through a stout faucet, which actually off-gasses some of the CO2. You get some of those finer nitrogen bubbles to it. And as far as beers that I make, I'm very critical about my beer. So if it's not like absolutely perfect, and I'll be honest with you, It's not the favorite I've ever made, but I definitely drink it. But it looks like y'all drink it all, so good. But yeah, it's just being a home brewer. It's easy. You can start really easily. You can start with just syrups, basic kit beers, and go from there. And I just kind of got the bug, and to the point where I'm just, you know, it's like, do I pay my bills or do I buy more brewing equipment and ingredients? So it's kind of, you know, you can be a little bit obsessive about it. But yeah, I hope you all enjoy it. And I'm going to pass the mic over to Tim. I've had some of his beer. It's very excellent. And let's hear about him.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Tim Jenkins. I'm from Elizabethton, Tennessee, so about 2 hours east. I've been brewing for about 2.5 years. I'm only 23, so I've only been able to brew for about 2.5 years. So I've been brewing ever since then. And I really delved into it very hardcore from the beginning. I started with extract like most people do, and then quickly went to all grain. And I now do 6-gallon batches, and I traditionally do classic styles. I like to try and do very well examples of classic styles, but the beer I brewed for this is a very untypical beer for me to brew. It's a 100% Brettanomyces fermented beer. For you that don't know what Brettanomyces is, traditionally in Belgium or England or even in America now, they use it after fermentation, primary fermentation, as conditioning, and it produces these very unusual flavor characteristics. Some beers is considered off flavors, intentional, like they use like a wooden barrel, bread can be in the wood, infected. But in my beer, I used no beer yeast, no normal beer yeast, and normally it gives these characteristics like barnyard, horse blanket, really nasty sounding flavor characteristics, but they're actually very delicious. But I found, this is the first time I've ever brewed anything like this, so I found that if used primarily, it makes the beer very clean, a little bit of funkiness and a slight tartness at the finish. But it was just an experiment that cost me a small amount of money, and it was very fun to do. And if I was to do it on their scale, probably wouldn't be as fruitful. But yeah, I love homebrewing. I've become very obsessed with it. I do it a lot and spend a lot of money doing it, but it's a very good hobby to be a part of.
Brother, preach the word.
I'm in like 2 homebrew clubs and vice president of one, so it's just something that I feel like anybody can do. If you don't think that you can do it, it's extremely cheap to get into, and it can be very rewarding. Even if it doesn't taste great, it tastes great to you if you made it. So, thanks for having me.
Hey, my name is Tyrone Harris. I'm, I guess, Secret City Brewery. I'm in part of the Tennessee Valley Home Brewing Club. Those guys over there. My beer is a lighter beer. It's a lighter color beer. It's a no boil. I didn't boil any of the hops at all. I just used a lot of hops. At the very end, like after the boil was done, I just put them all in, and then I dry hopped it too. It was a total of, I think I made 30 gallons total, or 32 gallons total, and I split it between 6 different yeasts. So it's like 5 gallons fermented on each different yeast, and so you see how the different yeasts affected the aroma from the hops. I used a single type of hops. It's called Palisade. The reason why I used it is because it was really cheap. very, very cheap. Nobody's using Palisade for some reason. I don't know why. It's like, I don't know. But I got a great deal on it. It was only, it's regular $1. It sounds really good over there. But it was regular $1.50 an ounce, which is pretty normal for hops. And it was, I got it through More Beer and shipped. It was 32 cents an ounce. Insane. Now
you go see version of hops now, all of a sudden.
I put more beer out of the business, but I put them all in. It was for 30 gallons of beer, it was like 6.2 pounds of hops, I think, which is a lot of hops. It's over 2 pounds of hops per 5 gallons keg. So yeah, it's gonna. I hope it doesn't blow out your palate too much or anything, but it's mostly just so you can see what the aroma of the Palisade hops is. It's great. All right.
Guys, my name is Matt Ravy. I would like to congratulate you. If you are here, you are a beer nerd. So I also am a member of Tennessee Valley Home Brewers, but only for a few weeks. I just moved down from Jonesboro, Tennessee. I was and still am a member of the state of Franklin Home Brewers up there. And with Tim Jenkins, which if you guys had that beer before, the Britannomyces fermentation, if you're familiar with Britannomyces fermentation, that's outstanding. Really key. But I'm not going to nerd out too much. And this guy, I haven't met this guy yet. I thought I was going to be the biggest dude here. What's up, man? So I have the Imperial Porter that's sitting on your table. It's weighing in at about 8%, so be careful. It's actually, I hate to admit it, but that beer is a mistake. That's what all these guys were talking about. I screwed up. I tried to hide it. I tried to make a black IPA. It didn't quite turn out. But as a home brewer, I have the ability to say it's an Imperial Porter. These guys can't do that. They can't tell.
Hey, you're probably upset to find out the craft brewers can do that same thing. So we just charge more for our mistake.
So you're going to notice that porter is really a roasty kind of style. It started off in the 1700s in England. It was popular with street porters and river porters. These were the pre-automotive truckers that carried the goods in from the river into the city to be consumed. It had a fairly popular first century in existence, and then we had some really outstanding inventions in home brewing, or brewing rather. That was the invention of the hydrometer, the thermometer, also a drum roaster. So now malts weren't smoky, so you could really enjoy the malty sweetness. Porters were typically bigger beers, which may explain their initial popularity. They were a little heavier. These were the beers that people would stop in on their way home from work. They'd stop in, have a nice, smooth, roasty porter, talk with their friends. That way when they got home, they didn't have to be the wife, the kids, and the dog quite as much. This is the original Daddy's Little Helper. And being an American, I kind of tend to go the same way. I'm going a little big, a little bit bigger beer. So roasty, smooth. It's got a little bit of alcohol warmth as it warms up. Nice hot flavor, but the roast is good. And it's a sip. Hope you enjoy it. And by the way, I'd love your feedback. If you have a chance later, come by and talk to me about it. I'm always looking to improve and like to know what people think about my beer. So thanks. Hope you enjoy the event. Thank you.
My responsibility is to teach on all 1,400. I have a training manual that I wrote on each of the cheeses to be able to describe them and to be able to teach somebody. The hardest part about teaching cheese is like teaching beer. I mean, how do you really teach beer? I mean, it's kind of like teaching a dog to walk or swim, you know? It's, you put them there and you do it, right? Well, what the hardest part is understanding what you're tasting. Right now, you grab a piece of cheese, you eat it, and you go, oh, nice. You've been eating already, but do you really know what you're eating? I mean, you really taste it. When you're tasting the beer, you stop and you think, wow, these hops are really citrusy. A particular direction citrusy. For you. You know, how you feel about it. You know, you're making an opinion about it. But when you eat chicken, what do? You just go, oh, it's chicken. Well, when you eat cheese, a lot of times you just take a bite and move on. This is really not about that. This is about paying a little bit of attention about what happens, the subtleties to it. A lot of times people say, well, you know, what goes good with this? What goes good with it? Everything. Well, you know, it all depends on what you like. There is no way in this class that I can teach you or tell you what you like. I can't do that. Everybody's palate's a little bit different. Eric was at the Craft Brewers Conference in San Diego, and I did a cheese and beer event there. And there's about 550 people, predominantly brewers, so very well attuned to tasting. And we did this fabulous tasting between two. And one of the guys got up, and it was an open mic, and he said, you know, I think this would be better with something a little bit more hoppy. Well, for him, yeah, it would be. So when we're going through these tastings, and we're going to move very quickly as we can serve and move through this, so you'll be able to experience each one. Now, a little bit of guidelines here. I get asked all the time, well, Michael, do you drink the beer first and then add the cheese, or do you eat the cheese and then drink the beer, or do you try to do them simultaneously? All right, so, well, you know, the hardest part about it is just getting a determination of what each one brings to the table. Since we already have the beer, we're going to start with the beer. And it's establishing what that tastes like. In other words, the idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the mic over in a minute to Marty. And Marty's going to talk a little bit about the beer. Then I'm going to come back and talk about the cheese, about what you expect. Then we're going to look at what happens when you put the two together. Everything has to change. Nothing's going to stay the same. It can't. There's a chemical reaction that's going to happen. Also, what you like and what you don't like. In other words, if you don't like the beer, heaven forbid, then you're not going to like the pairing. If you don't like the cheese, then you're not going to like the pairing. So I brought in 6 very different cheeses. But what I wanted to do was to give you an opportunity to see how they can work with each of the cheeses. So on your sheet there, if you take a look at it, the first pairing that we're going to have is with a cheese that's called Oktoberfest. And it is a Spanish cheese from the Spanish Pyrenees, 100% raw sheep's milk. And then it's lightly smoked. So what I wanted to do was to show you about smoked cheeses and then beer. So you would think with a smoked cheese, you would need a lot of power. But that's not true, because properly brewed beers with real flavor are going to stand up to these cheeses. And all of these cheeses are no different than craft beer. In other words, there is a cheesemaker that every morning gets up and practices craft. These are all, every single one of these are handmade cheeses. A lot of them are raw milk, where they take the milk that morning and make the cheese. So they're very, very unique in many ways, but they're also, like a craft beer, very, very rich and very, very full. So we'll start off with the beer first, and I'm going to turn it over to Marty, and behind me, and he's going to tell you a little bit about the beer, then I'll come back and tell you more about the cheese.
Thank you, Michael. I'm going to give you a little backstory on this beer. The Thunder Road Pilsner is a Bohemian Pilsner, Czech-style Pilsner. Pilsner Kel, Sam Adams Boston Lager is also classified in this category. Those are two that you may be familiar with. It's a style that's very near and dear to my heart, and the reason being is it's really the beer that got me interested in brewing in the first place. Back in the late 70s, I visited Czechoslovakia, where I have relatives. My mom would take us about every other year, me and my kid brother, and we'd run around the farm. And the trip that I was about 17, I got a taste for the beer. A 17-year-old was allowed to drink beer there, and I really enjoyed the Pilsner Kel and this Zlatý Bažant and the Velkovici Volkov, and you know, I mean, there's amazing beers, Pilsner beers, the Budvar original Budweiser. So when I came back to the States, I said, well, where can I get these beers? Can't get those beers anywhere here. Well, can I get something like it? No. And so it was at that time that I decided to make my own beer, and I found a local homebrewing club store, and started trying to emulate that beer. That's 30 years ago, so I'm still at it, and I think I'm getting close. You can be the judge, but I think it's a good representation of the style. So the thing about Pilsner, real quick, I don't have a lot of time, but I'll give you a little quick history on it. Pilsners came about in a time where most beers throughout continental Europe were very dark beers. In Munich, the famous beers were dark lagers. They couldn't make light, delicate beers. So in Pilsen, most of the beers developed around sources of water. The water in Pilsen was very soft, and you could brew a very light body, light colored beer, and put a lot of hops in it, because real hard alkaline water would make the hops very astringent and very sharp. But you can put a lot of these wonderful Saaz hops that are grown in Czech Republic and are still considered some of the finest hops in the world. Put a lot of them in the beer, so you get a lot of hop flavor, but you're not getting a lot of hop bitterness. So when you drink the beer, you'll perceive a lot of that flavor, and it's not a very citrusy or bright flavor. It's a more earthy, austere bitterness. It's a more, in my mind, it's a very elegant bitterness, and it balances the malt nicely. But you can put a lot of that flavor in without getting the sharpness or the high bitterness. So it does go well with a lot of different foods. Now, growing up, we ate a lot of dumplings and pork and chicken paprikash and some spicy dishes, and this beer goes with all of that. So it's a very versatile beer, and it doesn't overpower any dish, but it can also stand up to dishes that have a little assertive flavor like the paprikash. So Michael's going to tell you how he decided that this cheese went well with that beer.
Thank you, Marty. Now, how many of you have actually drank a beer while the brewer explained to you what he was meaning to do with it? Isn't that awesome? Yeah. Let's give Marty a hand here. You know, that's what's so exciting about working with this. I mean, most of my job, believe it or not, besides teaching cheese, I'm required to drink beer and wine and spirits and eat chocolate with cheese. They made me do this. You know, I do a little bit on my own, but you know what? I am such a dedicated employee that I'll continue to do it all the time. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do here is taste the cheese. This is Corazon de Ronda. It is the bowl, and it is a smoky cheese. I want you to take 3 bites. I want you to take one right after the other one and after the other one. What you're going to notice is an intensity of flavors that are going to come out. The first bite, you probably only got a little bit of smokiness. The second bite, you should start tasting butter. There's a tremendous amount of butter fat in there. Feel it on your fingers. Smell that. That is popcorn butter. Butter, 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 butter. There's a tremendous amount of butter. If you got an issue with butter, you need to leave now. All of these are all about butter. What smell? I mean, my ingredient that I have is cow's milk or sheep's milk. So this is a sheep's milk. Sheep's milk is sweeter than cow's milk. So it's much, much richer. All right, so we get through the 3 bites. Now you notice that there's also a hint of nuttiness on there. If you're not tasting nuttiness right now, then you're not paying attention. Pay attention! Are you not listening to me? Because you should be tasting a nice nuttiness right now. All right, that is a characteristic of this. That is how this works. All right, now we have a nice amount, put a nice amount of cheese in your mouth, and now take a nice, even, not a big sip, but a nice, even sip of the beer. Now notice what happens. What's the mouthfeel on this? Is it a creamy mouthfeel? Do you notice that all of a sudden it's just become really rich, as if somebody poured some cream in your mouth? Notice how rich that is. Then, at this point, what happens to the buttery nut flavor? What's going on with that? Did it disappear? Did you lose the butter? Did the butter go away? All right, the butter on this turns almost into bread-like. Notice that it's almost bready now?
Oh, yeah.
But there's a sweetness here with the smoky. So it's smoky, sweet, and bread-like. Interesting, isn't it? So that's the characteristics that you get when you pair up cheeses. Cheeses they work much better, and I get this all the time. Michael, which is better, wine or beer? Beer. Why? It's bread. It's liquid bread. What's better than that? You know, that goes so naturally with a lot of the cheeses. So you're really going to get a much richer experience with a lot of these beers, especially something of quality that what Marty did here. And that you don't have too much hops, but there's just enough to cut in there and to take a little bit of that butteriness. Because honestly, there's so much butter that it's kind of overwhelming. So you get a nice subtle pairing. Not all these pairings are going to be in your face. That's not the point. The point is to create something that gives a nice symmetry of both of the flavors. All right, so what do we think? It's okay? Works?
Yes.
All right, our next, we have our next beer out. We're pouring out the next beer. All right.